Wow. Okay. So, I wasn't raised in a Catholic Christian environment at all. Wasn't baptized. Parents were, complete pagans. And it was a disaster for their marriage. They separated, got divorced. Then my mother remarried. That didn't work out. Got divorced. Then she remarried a third time. My third dad was a nominal Christian, in name only. He didn't practice or anything. But he adopted me, so I got his last name, Calloway, which most people think I'm really good at golf. I'm not. I actually hate the game. But it's kind of cool when I fly through airports. They see my last name like, Calloway? I'm like, no. And he got me baptized. Well, his parents did, my new grandparents. So I was baptized in the Episcopalian church when I was 10. Didn't mean anything. We never went to church, that stuff. So he was a military officer. So we moved all the time. Ended up in Japan. And I completely lost it over there.
How old were you then?
I think at that time I was 13.
Okay.
Right? And we were living in California before that.
Was that cool for a 13-year-old boy to go
No.
Go to
It sucked.
Okay.
We were in California. Yeah. California was awesome, right?
Yeah.
It was the 1980s where all the music was, all the girls.
Yeah.
I was just like, I want to live here for the rest of my days.
Yes.
Then he said, we're moving to Japan.
So it's not like you were in Ohio and they were like, you want to go to Japan.
Right.
You were in California.
Yeah. Right. So I was like, I'm not going, but I had to. So I got there and immediately got involved with the wrong crowd and eventually ran away from home on the big island of Honshu, the big island of Japan. And I got involved with the Yakuza.
No idea.
Right.
Kind of.
The Japanese Mafia.
Right.
Yeah. So serious stuff, man. Right. They don't usually recruit like little white boys, but they use me as a drug mule to run drugs and money to different casinos.
I'm sorry. You have to slow down your story because now I'm totally gripped.
Bro, you don't know this?
I know nothing. I promise.
It's free on YouTube, bro.
Well, and now it is again. So, okay. How did you get involved with the Japanese Mafia and... What the?
And I was 15. So, I ran away and I wasn't going to get gainful employment, right? I wasn't going to look for a job. So at that time, if you were mid 1980s, if you were a white boy with long hair and I was growing my hair long, you were Bon Jovi, man. I mean, you were in the band Cinderella or Rat or Poison, right? I mean, that was the 80s. And so I stood out in Japan. So all these girls, were hooking me up with things and they were like, if you want to get money, this is what you got to do. So I started running drugs for this criminal organization. Nobody suspected that. In my backpack, a little white boy had, like the equivalent of like 10,000 US dollars on him in yen, which always like $1 million yen. It sounds awesome, but it's not $1 million. I was living the life, man. But caused an international scene, right? That's not normal. You can't get away with that for long. So I got kicked out of the country, apprehended, thrown in jail, Japanese jail.
How did you get caught?
Well, I ran away from the jail, right? I went to use the restroom and bolted.
No, but how did you get caught? You were a drug mule for these people. When did you first get caught?
So they tapped the phone lines because I was calling back to the military base where my friends were. And I was like, dude, we got girls who want to meet American boys. I got wicked amounts of money. I've got mopeds. We were stealing all this stuff. And they listened to the phone lines and apprehended me at a train station near Yokohama. And that was the first time I ran away, from that as well. So eventually I couldn't get away. They literally handcuffed me, not just to myself, but to a military police officer, an MP.
That'll
Big
do it.
dude, yeah.
Well,
but here's the cool thing, Matt, is through all that insanity, which is, and trust me, this is the G-rated version. My mom had a huge crisis. She was going to counseling. She was on medication for depression, anxiety, all that stuff. None of it was working until a Filipino lady in Japan, married to an American GI, right? Happens all around the world. She said to my mom, you have to go talk to a Catholic priest. And my mom was like, why? Why am I going to do that? But the Filipino woman, if you know Filipino women, they're like green berets in the spiritual life. They'll take you down, right? They mean business. You better do what they say. So she was insistent with my mom. My mom was like, fine, shut up. I'll go. She went and talked to a Catholic priest. I didn't know any of this. That priest changed my mom's life. Told my mom about the Eucharist, about confession, about the saints, all that stuff. My mom is Italian. Lucita Bianco is my mother's maiden name. How she was not Catholic, totally weird, but wasn't. Somehow it was like when that priest told her about Catholicism, he was like, he turned on Catholicism, like on, in her Italian DNA, And she was like, this is amazing. I didn't know that. So my mom had to leave the country before I was caught. That's how bad it was. They were still looking for me when my mom had to leave and find a place to relocate in the States. So when I was apprehended, I was sent back to the U.S. They couldn't do anything like as far as like incarceration or charges because I hadn't done anything on American soil. So it was a tricky situation. So I went to my first rehab.
Wow. How upset was your dad?
Oh my gosh, totally. He never got promoted again in the military.
Oh,
he had to
wow.
retire early.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your relationship with him like?
Back then it was horrible.
Yeah. And then after this didn't help.
No, not at all. Now I love the guy. I mean,
Wow.
he's my Joseph. Yeah, he's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you weren't just running drugs for people. You were doing them drugs.
Oh, big time. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you pinch off your own stash, you know. So I come back. I go to my first rehab, and that was in Pennsylvania, and it was a disaster. I mean, I learned how to do more drugs in the rehab, but through all that, my mom became Catholic, my stepdad, became Catholic, and my brother Matthew. I thought they had joined a cult. Literally, I thought they've Jim Jonesed it, man. They're going to go to Uganda, drink Kool-Aid, and off themselves. I don't know what the Catholic Church is about, but they're weird. I thought Catholicism is anti-science, anti-woman, antiquated, male-dominated hierarchical institution that hates everything and just has rules. That's what I thought. And so I wanted nothing to do with it. And that's when I couldn't even live with him because my mom was so super religious that I could not stand to be around her. So I ended up following a band called the Grateful Dead. And that's when my hair was like all the way down to my belt, right? Got a tattoo called Steal Your Face on my shoulder. I don't even remember getting it. I woke up and my shoulder hurt and there it was. Doing acid and mushrooms and heroin and coke and smoking crack, going to all these Dead shows, which I never even got into most of them, you know, and ended up in another rehab in Philadelphia. It was
by your own choice?
No, I OD'd on crack in the streets of Philadelphia, and they, didn't know what to do. So they put me in this place, which was a rehab, but also a psychiatric unit. Still there. It's Charter Fairmont Institute. You can look it up. It's still there. I was there for 6 weeks, and oh my gosh, it was a disaster.
Why?
I didn't want to be there, and the method was laughable. And I don't mean to make light of these things can work, right? And they can be beneficial. Yeah. But it was a Band-Aid on a spiritual problem. It didn't offer anything more than just make a good showing of sobriety because somebody's putting the bill for this and we got to act like we know what we're doing. So here's the Dixie cup of meds, take it and cooperate with the program. Oh man, and I was forced to go there anyway, so I didn't want to be there.
Did your parents force you to go?
Yeah, and like the authorities, because they were like, if he doesn't do something, we can press charges for vagrancy or some other kind of stuff. And it was crazy. Wow. So when I got out of number 2 rehab, man, my parents are going to church every day.
What?
Yeah. I thought, you guys are nuts. Who does this, right? It's bad enough that people go once a week. You're going every day. And they had enrolled my brother in a Catholic school, which in my mind, right, he was being beat up by a bunch of penguins. That's what I thought nuns were, right? They're penguins, who just whip you with a ruler across your face and tell you obey the commandments. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. Well, I continued to live my crazy life. And then I had what I call the divine 2x4. Rock bottom. And I've been there many times, but this was absolute rock bottom. I was even thinking about taking my own life, just ending it all. Because I have some friends who did that. They're not here anymore. And as I'm passing through my parents' house on this occasion, thinking about ending my life, I picked up a book that my parents had on their bookshelf about Marian apparitions. No idea what this is, right? Clueless about this. And I start to read this thing, and I'm just like, what is this? Why haven't I heard of this? Because I was into things like Sasquatch and Nessie. I was going to go to Scotland and drag that stinking beast out of that lake, right? Why can't nobody find this thing? I was into those specters and ghosts and stuff.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm like, what is this stuff? Who's this Virgin Mary? And it blew me away, man. And most of my sins, my predominant fault, I would say would be lust, right? Most of the times I was drinking and smoking weed and all that was just to score girls and doing the crazy stuff just to score girls. So there's a saint who says, I think it might be St. Bernard of Clairvaux. Somebody says, the ways that a man sins are the ways that a man will be purified, right? So all of a sudden, I'm learning about this beautiful woman who's a virgin. I didn't know any virgins, right? And she's saying that she's the mother of Jesus. And she seems to be so beautiful, comes from a place called heaven. What is this stuff? What is these concepts? To me, the stairway to heaven was the same thing as the highway to hell. Neither one of them were real, but you sing about it, everybody talks about it. So all of a sudden it's being presented as though it's real. And I'm like, what is this stuff? And all I knew was that this woman seemed to be so ravishingly beautiful. And I didn't feel like I wanted to do anything foul with her. Mm-hmm. It was a kind of beauty I've never encountered before. And it was getting to my manhood, right? So long story short, man, the next day I went and talked to a Catholic priest and my life began to radically change, man. I mean, look, this is what I look like.
Yeah, you can hold it up for that camera there.
You know, and I'm not a narcissist, by the way, but I do carry a big picture of myself around the world.
Nice.
If I pulled out a pocket size one at conferences, nobody'd be able to see it. So,
Right.
So that was me when I was 17, right?
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought about the video.